Hello, this is Mark L. White with Health Hacks, and today we have Dr. Beth Westie. And Dr. Beth Westie is a specialist in female hormones, but you also created like nutrition based on your cycle, which is something I don't know about, but I have two girls that are teenagers and a wife, so I know how much cycle can influence it.
Yeah.
So how, like, I've never heard of anybody applying nutrition based on hormones. How did you get into that?
Yeah. Yes. Great question. So this was something that I actually had struggled with myself after I, had my kids and went through grad school and everything. So I have three kids. I had my first two kids while I was in chiropractic school because I'm a chiropractor by training, but also trained in Eastern medicine and acupuncture, which is a lot of where I draw, information from for
That's
women's health.
interesting.
Yeah.
Chiropractor and Eastern medicine. You don't see that combo a lot.
Yeah, no. When I went to school, I got trained in like all the things that I could get trained in. So a lot of what I talk about seems really different just because it comes from that Eastern medicine background, Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, things like that. Yes. And so when I, being in grad school, any type of, a higher education program is pretty intense. It's a lot of stress, right? And I had two kids while I was in grad school. Kind of a tough schedule.
And how was your diet in grad school? A lot of fast food?
It was actually pretty good. Like there were some dietary changes that I made that actually led to me being able to get pregnant. So there was that. And so I, going to school, it was a very health conscious school. So I was gluten-free, dairy-free, I still am, right? Eating clean, all that stuff. And really changed things around. So while I was in grad school, it was just the stress of going through it. And then I graduated, started a clinic, and then got pregnant with my third, all within a few months. So then my youngest was born and she was actually a preemie. She was about 2 months early. So I had a preemie, a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a brand new business and
That'll keep your hands full
of stress. Yes. Yeah. And what happened is my whole system just kind of shut down. It stopped functioning really well. So, and I started getting ovarian cysts. So for people who aren't familiar with having a cyst, it's really painful. It feels like you have appendicitis or that, somebody's stabbing you in the stomach. And I would have that every month. And I had that for about 1.5 years.
Was it related to your cycle?
Yes, it was related to cycle, hormones, and again, triggered by all the stress that I was under and everything else. And I tried on my own to deal with it, right? Like I tried to, take more supplements or things. I was already eating really clean. But I couldn't really just take one thing that would get rid of it. And finally, it was my husband who actually brought me into the ER. And he was like, this is not normal. Like you are in a lot of pain sometimes and can't get off the floor. You need help. And the ER doctor was like, oh, well, here's your birth control. Here's your Vicodin. See you later. Like you're going to have to be on these things forever.
Traditional Western medicine at its best.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was like, that's not, I don't, I want more solutions. I want to know why this is happening. And I want to help work with my body better because I didn't have these issues before. Right. I didn't have these issues before, but I wanted to know what to do to take care of it now. And so I went home just livid after that experience. Right. We've all had experiences where, right, you meet with a practitioner and you're like, this was not helpful.
There's got to be a better way, but
yeah,
like nutrition seems like such a simple fix, but nobody's talking about it.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's the thing is that, again, no one asked me what my stress levels were. No one asked me what I was eating or what I was doing or how I was trying to take care of myself. It was more of, oh, you have this problem. Here's all these pills. See you later. Mm-hmm. And these pills have major side effects, which my body doesn't handle very well. So going home, looking things up, really diving into Eastern medicine and started actually eating for my hormones and cycle, like started doing hormone detoxes, things like that to level out my hormone levels. And then I started applying eating for different parts of the cycle. So the female body goes through like 4 different bodies throughout the month. And so all I did was start aligning what I was eating with what the body needs nutritionally with the different physiology you have. And I was able to, it didn't happen overnight, right? Took a few months, but I was able to regulate my system myself. I stopped having cysts. And then I started working with patients in my office, like with this. I started like writing up these meal plans on hand, like on pieces of paper, like writing out these things, handing it to somebody, and then off they would go. And it started to take off so much that I ended up selling my clinic, jumping into writing, speaking, writing a book and everything, and doing the work that I do now with women virtually, because there's so many women out there that need help with their hormones, with their cycles, that just don't know what to do because all they're told is the same thing,
Dude, let me ask you this, like when it comes to women, do you have to measure their hormones either using saliva or blood work so you can see where they are? Because don't women have different outputs of, I know there's estradiol, there's the 3 different estrogens, and it cycles a lot depending on the woman.
Yes. Yep. So sometimes people will come to me already having a saliva test or a blood panel, but I also do a urine test. I do a urine test. It's called Dutch test, which stands for DUTCH, dried urine test for comprehensive hormones. And what that does is it allows you to see all 3 types of estrogen, right? The E1, E2, E3, what those levels are at, and how your body's processing those hormones.
So
That's
every
that's the
woman
big thing.
processes it differently, I would assume, based on stress or other genetic factors.
Yeah. Yes. Yep. So we want to make sure that wherever it's not being processed correctly, that's what we focus on, and like open up those pathways to help estrogens move out of the body better. It alleviates symptoms. It can regulate cycle, all that stuff. But that way you're not guessing, right? And you're not just taking something to try and, alleviate a symptom. You're actually working with how the body's functioning.
Okay, so for a guy who deals with women that going through their cycles, does it help with PMS and the emotions women feel right before they have their period?
Yes. Oh, yes.
So tell me about the secret. Tell me, I'm going to take notes here.
Yes. And the thing is that like every time I start talking about this, most women are like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. How come we didn't learn about this before? Right. And for a lot of, men that listen, they're like, I never heard about anything like that. It makes sense to me, or I've seen this happen with women, right? I've witnessed this. A lot of times trainers, male trainers, physical trainers will come across, my podcast or videos or something, and they'll say, this makes a lot of sense. How can I work with women better? And it's really acknowledging that the body just physiologically has different needs. So I break it down to start into 2 different phases. Days 1 through 14. Days 1 is the first day is a cycle. Day 14 is about when you ovulate, and then everything kind of shifts and changes. Day 15 through 28 then is the second half. So the first phase here, day 1 through 14, this is the estrogen phase. Estrogen rises in the body and is higher at that time. And when estrogen is higher, you are actually having a lower basal body temperature, but your body can have more energy. It burns carbs naturally. Your digestive system is functioning better, all of these things. And it's a very different time frame. If you want to build more lean muscle, it's easier to do in the estrogen phase for a lot of women.
So while you're ovulating and like the week before you're ovulating, that's when you can build more muscle?
Yeah.
Okay. Should they be changing their macros during that time and focusing more on protein, less on carbs, more on carbs?
Yeah. So with the body burning carbs naturally, you can actually eat more carbs and have the benefit of getting more energy from carbohydrate then.
Is that why, what I've noticed with my wife and my kids is they tend to eat a lot right before their period.
Yes. And that is because in the second phase, days like 15 through 28, when basal body temperature rises, the progesterone phase of the body, your system actually needs more nutrient. It needs more calorie, anywhere from 300 to 500 more calories a day. You will need more proteins and more fat at that point. And it's easier to get those nutrient dense foods in. And if you don't have it, your system will feel depleted. And that's what leads to a lot of cravings leading up to the time the period starts.
So if you cut back the carbs in phases 3 and 4, you won't be as hungry in phases 1 and 2.
Yes.
Okay, and it doesn't matter. Let's say somebody is taking birth control pills, or somebody like has unnatural cycles. It still works.
Yeah. So with birth control pills, depending on what type of a pill that you're taking, because they can do different things. Sometimes there's, oh, this is a progesterone only pill or an estrogen only pill or something like that. But essentially, it's still helpful for your system to go through that phasic change throughout the month and to have your hormones be supported by your nutrition that way. A lot of benefit can come from that. A lot of benefit can happen from having that pattern continue. And with irregular cycles, these are things that can actually help regulate the cycle. It's just like seed cycling. For those that are familiar with seed cycling, that's eating pumpkin and flax seeds during the first 2 weeks, and then sesame and sunflower seeds during the second 2 weeks, during weeks 3 and 4, to help with cycle regulation, hormone processing, and everything else. It's just like that, but it's like with all the other foods that you're eating.
How about like the role of micronutrients, supplements? Like, are there different supplements women should be taking during the phases, or is there like a catch-all supplement to make sure you're getting your micronutrients?
Yeah, great question. So for a lot of supplementation, like general supplements, regular vitamins, things like that, those work best when they are built up in the system and you take them on a consistent basis, right? Like if you're taking zinc or vitamin C or magnesium or all those things. And a lot of those nutrients are necessary for regular hormone processing as well. So getting them on a daily basis is really important. It's really the extra nutrient, like the proteins and fats during the progesterone phase, that really benefit the system the most. Yeah.
And does a woman need to, like, do you have a diet you just give her? Does she keep a journal? Like, what's the best way somebody knows what they should be eating?
Yes. Um, so a lot of women know where they're at in their cycle, especially if they have hormone issues. They know how much their cycle is off, that type of a thing. Otherwise, they will be tracking basal body temperature. They'll be tracking with ovulation strips, that type of a thing. But that's why we also do the hormone testing to see where your body's really at. A lot of times, gals who are, oh, my cycle's been irregular, I'm not sure. I'm in my mid 40s. Am I in perimenopause? I'm not sure. And that's why we do the hormone testing to see exactly where your system is at. And oftentimes they are not actually in perimenopause. It's just that their hormone levels are so off, their system doesn't know how to regulate on its own. So that's what we help it with.
How about women who are in perimenopause, or even if they're postmenopausal, but they're taking hormones versus like a woman who's just not taking hormones? Are there different diets for them?
Yes. Yep. I have a whole other meal guide and plan for gals that are in perimenopause and menopause. Because again, when the body shifts and changes hormonally that much, right? It's like you're living in a different body. The physiology changes, and these hormones, they go everywhere in the system. They pass through the blood brain barrier. It's not just isolated to the reproductive hormones or reproductive organs. These hormones go everywhere and impact everything. So really every system in your body will change. Your digestive system changes, how your body builds and maintains lean muscle changes, how your body targets fat for energy changes, everything. So there are some different tweaks, like overall getting more protein when you've been through perimenopause, menopause. How your body processes carbohydrate also changes a lot too. The female body, when it goes through menopause, does not process simple carbohydrates as easily as it used to. So things like fruit, even, it's harder for for the female body to process those simple sugars. So instead of not eating fruit, you just have to make sure you're balancing it really well with the other nutrients that you're eating and moderating, that type of nutrient.
Get into intermittent fasting strategies, or should women be using intermittent fasting or other types of modalities?
Yeah. Oh, yes. This is a big topic that is constantly debated, because some people will be like, yes, intermittent fasting is fantastic. It's super helpful, which is true, which is very true. But a lot of times when gals want to start intermittent fasting, they want the benefit of it. They want the, weight loss benefits. It decreases inflammation. It helps repair digestive system issues. There's a lot of benefits to intermittent fasting. But for gals that do, I'll just call it chronic dieting, oh, I've been on keto and I've done all these other diets and I've cut my calories down to 1,200 calories a day for, 6 months. And that worked a little bit, but now it's not working. So now I'm going to try intermittent fasting. Their body's already depleted and they're jumping into some type of fasting routine, hoping that this is going to help them keep getting results, when really, even if the fasting is good for them, their body's not ready for it. Do you know what I mean? It's
Welcome to Health Hacks. If you're a woman and you just want better sexual health, you have to check out the latest breakthrough solution to help you restore sensation, have that natural lubrication again. Best of all, if you've been peeing in your pants, this will help even eliminate urinary incontinence. Best thing about it, it's non-invasive. You don't have to take pills. There's no lasers. It's simple. You just go to femiwave.com and you'll find a provider near you.
yeah.
If they're chronically dieting, they still have to have the nutrients. And if they are into, I just want to starve myself,
Yeah.
the diet doesn't work as well.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So oftentimes before we even jump into intermittent fasting, it's rebuilding the nutrient stores in the body, going through that. And then after that, the body can respond well with some gentle intermittent fasting techniques, nothing aggressive. The female body does not respond well to aggressive dietary techniques at all, for, not just intermittent fasting, but for other things as well. Yeah.
Let me ask you, because I talk to a lot of people who talk about diets, and
Mhm.
all of us know what to eat, what not to eat. The more complicated a diet is, sometimes it's a little bit harder to stay accountable. Now,
Yeah.
with your business model before, you had a practice. You would meet with women one-on-one. Now you're doing it virtually.
Mhm.
My question is, how do you hold all of these people accountable?
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. There is, so, part of it, and, these are things that we talk about and why I love working with individuals. And even if it is in a group, it's a group of gals going through things together, I still work with them one-on-one throughout the program because of that. Exactly. To have that personal connection there is a big difference maker for success, because you can get let off track, or you can feel like you're doing things wrong, or you can sort of have lifestyle things happen where you're like, shoot, we're traveling, I'm going on vacation, what do I do? And it's navigating those scenarios and not thinking of it as terms of like, oh, this is a period of time I'm on this diet. This is, how do I shift my lifestyle to this healthier way of eating all the time, and then maintain that from there.
So with your patients, it's more about creating communities and creating support groups so they feel like they're not alone.
Yes.
That's
Yep.
amazing.
Yeah.
How many women are you working with at any given time?
Oh, anywhere from like 80 to 100.
Okay.
Yeah.
And once they get the information, they know what they're doing, then they'll come back and see you. Is that what you usually see?
Yep. Yeah. Yep. And the cool thing about this whole thing, and I've been doing this for almost 7 years now, 6, 7 years now, just, in the online space, just virtually, is that I hear from women that I worked with years ago. Like just yesterday, I had a call with a gal that, I worked with 3 years ago. And she was just doing a check-in call just to update me on life and things. And it was amazing because she's like, yep, I'm still doing great. I'm still maintaining everything. I was in my daughter's wedding. Like, all these things can happen in life, and I'm still able to maintain my weight, maintain my health. I still haven't had hot flashes like I was having before all the time, so just to kind of update on how things are going for her. And that is my favorite thing, like to not miss out on life things, to be able to maintain results. And she's like, so this is, fantastic. So she still uses the same essential, I don't want to say meal guide, but nutrient recommendations for 3 years later, and it's still going well.
How about you see all this processed foods, you see a lot of antibiotics used in meats. Yeah, it seems that the problem's getting worse. Do you have any recommendations on like these foods you just need to stay away from and cut out? Like, we know about simple sugars. We know about processed carbs, like highly processed carbohydrates and junk food.
Yeah.
What recommendations or guidelines do you have that would apply to anybody?
Oh, yeah. Whew, that is a loaded question. Um, it's it's one of those things that the higher quality nutrient you can get in, the better. You know, it is more about quality than quantity. And getting the organic, the grass feds, meats and proteins that are raised without antibiotics or medications, things like that. They are more expensive, unless you have a way to, a connection of somebody who has a farm that you can get a half a pig from, or a quarter cow or something, or, I don't my husband's an outdoorsman, so he hunts. So we have venison that we, eat, almost year round, because he harvests the, the
You're
meat
up
for the
in
freezer.
you're up in Minnesota. You got
Uh-huh.
your hunting grounds in the back, your gardens, all the good stuff.
Yeah.
But like when you're talking to a woman who says lives in Brooklyn, New York, or somebody in a big city, are you just saying go to Whole Foods and take your list? Is it, are they ordering online?
Yeah, it's really kind of doing the best you can with where you're at. That's the thing, is that, and then again, because there is that thing, like, is this the best way to eat here? Yes, or all organic, yes, grass fed, everything, yes, absolutely. Is that realistic for somebody to maintain, 24/7, 365? That it might not be realistic. You know what I mean? It might not be the best. I'm sorry if you can hear my dog whining in the background. I put him
What
in his
kind of dog do you have?
we have two Springer Spaniels. They're bird dogs.
So, like on your
He's
journey,
whining because I put him in his kennel for this podcast, and he's like, "Mom, let me
have
out."
them come out. That's, I love
He's
dogs.
being a turkey.
Like, we all have like our mentors, people that we
Mm,
really like. We read them, like, Michael Pollan's book, I thought
yeah.
was great, The Carnivore's Dilemma. Was there any mentors like in your journey when you had your third pregnancy, when you started this journey, anybody that you really resonated with, or anybody that we can learn from?
So that's a that's something that this whole area for women's health and everything else is really, it's not studied like it should be. The female body really is not studied, and this goes for not just nutrition and overall health things. It's the pharmaceutical company and everything else. Women are not part of studies. So other resources, and there's a few people out there that are doing research and are on the front edge of this. There is a gal, she's in New Zealand, Dr. Stacey Sims. She does a lot of research on female athletes, and fueling the endurance athlete body. Uh, Great resource, great information that she talks about as well. And then there's another book, it's called Doing Harm. Doing Harm. And this book is all about how basically women have been left out of studies, health studies. They do a 70-year study on aging, and they don't include women in that study. They test medication. It wasn't even until 1993 that the US passed a law that women were even allowed to be a part of pharmaceutical companies' studies. Otherwise, women could not be tested. Any medications were not tested on women. They were tested on 140-pound men. That was considered to be the equivalent of a female body.
It's funny when you think about it, because like you're right. Like when you hear about diets,
Mm-hmm.
it seems that they've taken gender or biological sex completely out of the equation. Like I don't hear
Yeah.
about diets for men. I don't hear about diets for women. I just hear about diets.
Yeah.
Is there like in your work, have you seen like what is a diet a man would use? Like they don't obviously cycle. Is there a different diet that a guy should be on?
So for men, again, as long as their hormone levels are healthy and strong, right? Like they've got a good level of testosterone and lower and their cortisol levels are within range, a male body can start doing any type of activity. It almost doesn't matter what, because their testosterone will respond and have muscles build really quickly. And then as long as they're eating more protein, just even if they're still eating carbs and fat and not even just getting more protein in to support that lean muscle tissue, their body can get to and stay in fat burning for hours every day, every day. every day. No exaggeration, every day. Again, provided testosterone and cortisol levels are in check. And for the female body, it is not like that. The female body is not designed to get to and stay in fat burning all day, only for small snippets of time. And if we're under stress or our hormones are not regulated, our bodies won't get to fat burning. So women spend all this time, trying to find these diets or do these things and get to the gym and all this stuff, but their body is actually not at a point where it can burn fat yet.
No,
So that's what we have to work on correcting first.
Well, when we talk about stress, what we're really talking about, I think when it comes to our bodies, is stress turns into cortisol. Cortisol is very bad for us at chronic levels. Now you see people chronically stressed out because they're watching the news or they're unhappy with social media.
Yeah.
Are you talking to women about things they should be doing to reduce stress, thereby reducing cortisol levels?
Yes. Oh yeah. That's a must. I mean, and this is, sort of my opinion on this, but for people who make any type of dietary recommendation or any type of health recommendation, and they don't also address how to get your system to manage stress better, you're missing out on a huge picture. Some women that I work with, they'll realize that as we're working together, like they've come so far with their stress response internally, but them going to this job every single day where it's super, super stressful and all these other things, that they're like, I'm never going to break out of this stress cycle if I still have to go to work and I still have this boss or whatever. So they'll get a different job. They'll make a huge life change and realize I need to be healthier for myself and I'm going to get a different job that has less stress, which is an amazing thing to realize because it changes everything from there.
People don't realize how bad stress is for the body.
Yeah.
Even something as simple as gratitude or meditating or anything that it just reduces stress levels.
So much. And it has a head to toe impact. It really does. And it's not something that you can just I always use the phrase, you can't outrun it. You can't eat cleaner. You can't out kale the stress. You have to really work on changing your life and decreasing it with, like you said, the gratitude, journaling, walking, meditating, deep breathing techniques, getting a massage, and avoiding as much as possible things that bring you stress.
Okay, on that note, let me ask you, because you were talking about impact, and I think what you do as an influencer, and I really appreciate your work and all of your information. What do you plan to do over the next few years to have the greatest amount of impact on women's lives?
Yeah.
What are your plans?
So, I have been asked more recently now, because again, things were shut down for a while and everything. But I have been asked in the past few months by many different people to have live events, things like that, to actually have bigger events. Because what I do right now is, videos or sharing information or just getting it out there kind of grassroots wise. But to have more events and to create a lot more buzz around this, idea of really working with the female body and the physiology, and to put on events for that. So women can actually come and immerse themselves and really learn and start those changes and start those lifestyle changes right there, and then go home and just continue with it.
I think you're right. We've kind of lost social connection. I cannot do a Zoom live Zoom event. I just don't have the attention for it, and you don't meet people. It's not the same. We need those connections, and I think we're getting back to that.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I think we are. I used to do a lot of speaking, and then everything got shut down and canceled, and I'm just now starting to get speaking events booked for 2022. So
that's great. So if somebody's listening to this and they want more information, what's the next step?
Yeah. So I have a lot of information online. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, Dr. Beth Westie. My website is drbethwestie.com. My YouTube channel is called Dr. Beth Westie, and that's where I have just thousands of videos on women's health and hormones. And if somebody's looking for a video on a very specific topic and I don't have it, they can always send me hey, can you do a video on PMDD and thyroid or something? Yes, I totally can. that's where all my video content comes from. It comes from questions, and it comes from people asking more questions. And I also do, programs, group programs, things like that. And then I have a podcast called The Female Health Solution as well.
Nice. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. Thanks for taking time out. Let those dogs out and run around. No, this is great. That's drbethwestie.com. We're going to have links in the show notes.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you.